Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to introduce this event. This event is jointly organized by the Belgium Luxembourg Business Group and NUSS Business Connect. So I would like to welcome Ms. Isabel Alvarez Fernandez, the President of Belgium Luxembourg Business Group, and Mr. So Ida, the Chairman of the NUSS Business Connect Interest Group, to say a few words. Isabel and Ida, please. Let's virtually welcome them.
Ladies and gentlemen, so it's really my pleasure to welcome you as well for on the behalf of BLBG members. So we are the Belgian Luxembourg Chamber of Commerce. So Yida, first of all, it's my pleasure to thank you for the collaboration with NUSS. I have to say that is the second one. And I hope really many more to come. So thank you so much for this very nice collaboration. In BLBG, we think about connecting people and business and collaboration. So this last collaboration with NUSS has been really a nightlight of the kind of things that we can do. And I'm really sure that tonight is going to be a fantastic evening for our both membership, NUSS and BLBG. As you probably, I'm waiting forward that we can meet like we did last time physically. And our member can as well network for businesses. So Ida, thank you so much. And thanks to all the people that have been organizing it, which means NUSS and BLBG teams. I want just to put a special thank you before starting to Bo Gao, our board directors, who has helped us well to bring some speaker on stage, Dr. Li Wenlong. So thank you very much for the speaker. Thanks for CC, thanks to you, Yida and Dinesh, for putting all this together.
Yeah, thanks Isabel. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of NUSS Business Connect, welcome and thank you all for joining tonight's this evening's webinar. And we are very grateful for this collaboration opportunity with BLBG once again. This is our second time working together, as you mentioned. And both NUSS and BLBG, we both believe in uplifting thought leadership, which is why that's the genesis of this tonight's webinar. So in today's complex world, made more sophisticated with geopolitical tensions, I think tonight's webinar is very timely and also highly relevant. And we have got two very insightful speakers to share their thoughts. And finally, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank BLBG, our speakers Alfred and Dr. Lee, as well as our moderator CC for organizing tonight's event, and not forgetting the team, the secretariat from both BLBG and NUSS for organizing tonight's event. We wish everyone a fruitful webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Yida. A last little word for our members. So as well, stay tuned. We have as well other events coming out about crisis management and e-commerce. So look at our website and to all the advertisement and documentation sent by the team, Jackie and Caroline. So thank you so much. Wishing you all a wonderful night. Cici, I think the floor is yours.
All right, thank you both for the very warm welcome. Okay, so as we know, global protectionism is on the rise, and COVID-19, import and export tariffs and market access barriers endangers economic growth and jobs worldwide. So we're very honored tonight to have both the Chief Economist from Tuition Technology, Dr. Li Wenlong, and the CEO of Sing Capital, Mr. Alfred Chia, to join us tonight. They will be sharing with us how will protectionism affect businesses. How can businesses adapt and navigate the current geopolitical situations? So our first speaker, Dr. Li, is the Chief Economist of Tuition Technology based in Zhejiang, China. And he is also the member of China Cross-Border Finance 50-member Forum and advisor of Guoao Forum. Prior to that, he worked in the International Department of the People's Bank of China. From 2008 to 2009, He was sent by the People's Bank of China to the International Monetary Fund as an economist. From 2012 to 2019, he worked at the ASEAN Macroeconomic Research Office as senior economist responsible for China's economy and Asia-Pacific economic monitoring. Without further ado, let's virtually welcome Dr. Li.
Hello everyone. Good evening. Can you hear me? Hello?
Hi, Dr. Li, we can hear you clear.
Yeah, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So let me share my presentation here. Hi, good evening, everyone. It's my great pleasure to share my views to you as this webinar. Tonight, for this presentation, I would like to share some views about the background of COVID-19, the U.S.-China conflict against the background of global rise and protectionism implications for business. Actually, since early this year, we already done a lot of research on these areas, especially related to China and also the global economy, also about the Sino-US relationship. I think since 2018, the China-US also the trade tension had already intensified gradually, and since early 2020, the breakout of COVID-19 is further intensifies conflict between the two countries. So we think actually the background of the environment already changes significantly, especially in the last half years. Not only impacted the China-US relationships, but also impacted the global economy, and also they have very big implications for the business environment in China, Asia, as well as in the global economy. So today I would like to share some of our latest monitoring and forecast on the global economic growth, and then share some maybe three important implications for the business, especially related to the industry in the world. And first of all, if you look at the slide, you can see this is the accumulated the COVID-19 cases, the number of cases since the beginning. The yellow line is represent China. The numbers in the right-hand side, you can see actually in the first 30 days, there is a fast increase in these cases, but after 30 days, in China is going to a very stable stage. That means actually there's no further big increase in China. But on the other hand, if you look at the global, especially also the US, you can find until now the situation is still out of control. This means the cases continue to increase every day. So this means actually the impact of the COVID-19 maybe outside China is still out of control. So this is this means there's continue to impose the big uncertainty to the global economy. But for China, maybe there is an indirect impact, because in the direct impact of China, because China government already control this COVID-19, there no the direct impact has become smaller since the second quarter, but indirect impact, this means from the global outside had continued to impose some impact on China. And this is some latest the forecast from the major international organizations for the IMF and the WTO and the World Bank, you can find all the three the major institutions all forecast the negative growth in 2020, and especially for the WHO in the worst scenario, and the global growth may have been shrink by almost 9% this year compared with last year. Then if we go to China, we also can find there is 4 big natural disasters in the last 22 years since 1998. Flood in China, this is the big loss is as a percentage of GDP is 3%, and in the SARS is about 1.1% in 2003, and in 2008 the earthquake in the Sichuan Wenchuan is around 2.7%. And this for the COVID-19, I think even in the baseline scenario, it will be 3%. In the worst scenario, maybe around 5%. So in the baseline scenario, it's about RMB 3 trillion in China, the loss in this year. And this is our forecast in the 2 scenarios. First, the optimistic scenario, you can find the GDP growth will have a V-shape in 2020 and will be a rebound in 2021. And in this scenario, the GDP growth around 3%. And in the worst scenario or the serious scenario, we can find the GDP growth will be decline, maybe lower than in the optimistic scenario. Is only about 1% in 2020. So this is the latest. This is the earliest. This is the lowest growth since in the in the 1960s. After this background, the GDP growth contraction not only in China and the US, and then we can find actually the 2 countries, especially from the US, they are already post further pressure on China because they think this COVID-19, because of China haven't enough or good job to control the COVID-19, and then it makes the US some loss. So after the COVID-19 it became very popular in the US and become out of control, the 2 countries' tension has been intensifying further. But this is just a temporary reasons why the tension between the 2 countries become worse. But in the more fundamentally, we can find actually this is related to a new economic growth in the world. This means the digital economy actually since 2015 already changes the global economy. If you look at this chart, you can find, for example, the global internet flow is increased from the 2000 to 2002 is per second just 100 GB, but in we forecast in the 2022 actually the internet flows will be increased to about 150,000 GB second in 2020. This is, means the average annual growth about 44%. So all this indicates that the digital economy already coming to the world. If we look at China, this is the latest forecast in China about the digital economy and the traditional economy growth in China. If you look at this, you can find in 2019, the China nominal GDP growth about 99 trillions, and about 37% in the digital economy. But going forward, in the 2030, you can find China's GDP growth about 190 trillion RMB. But on the other hand, about 50% is the digital economy. This means in China, the digital economy growth has a very faster growth than the overall GDP growth. This means in the future, the digital economy in China will get a big share. So against this background, and we are in the digital economy, and digital economy actually it already changed the global traditional economy. And in the traditional economy, in the global, actually this is the U.S. and the European countries is in the center. This means they are the main power to get the consumer and to support the consumer. And on the other hand, the East Asia countries include China, ASEAN country, and Japan and Korea, South Korea is main countries to produce and provide the consumer goods to serve the U.S. and the European countries. But in the digital economy world, this will totally change. This means actually because all these major economy growth is shifted to the data area. This means the data hardware, data collection, and data analysis and the data response. All this becomes the major pension in the global. And along with this big change, and China already gets the big power and big influence in the global economy. If we look at this slide, you can find actually in the new world economy, or we always call it the new economy or the digital economy. This is shared, driven by both China and the U.S. But it's different from the traditional economy. In the traditional economy, this is the U.S. plus the European countries is driven the economy, and supported by the China, Japan, and Korea and ASEAN countries. But the new economy is totally driven by China and the U.S. These two big countries actually is the two major power in the digital economy. But when this economy is shifted from the traditional economy to the digital economy, we can find the competition between the two countries is become intensified. This means in the traditional pension, and the U.S. is the leading economy, and also is followed by the European countries and the Japan, the Korea, and China. But in the digital economy, we can find actually this is China is plus the U.S. together. It shares the world. So this means from the U.S. side, it feels more pressure, the competition from China. So this is why since 2015, especially since 2018, we can find from the U.S. side, this is the tension between the two countries become worse. This is the first start from the trade tension in mid-2018, and then gradually the competition is expanded to the technology area, such as the Huawei 5G technology, and then gradually and very recently this is expanded to the diplomatic area, such as yesterday the U.S. announced is close the consulate in the Texas in the U.S. and but this is not the overall story. This is just the beginning. All this is basically is because of the U.S. feels the big pressure competition from China in the digital economy. So in the digital economy, this means maybe in the future, and the competition between the two countries is not only limited in the trade and technology and the diplomatic, but then this is quite possible to expand to the other areas, including the financial and other area. So lastly, let me just summarize or conclude our observation in the three trends, these major three trends or implications. First is against the intensified China-US conflict and the COVID-19, and you can find the trend of anti-globalisation has become more prominent. This means actually since the breakout of the China-US the trade tension and the global supply chain already negative impact. This means some factory, international company, they have some location in China to produce some product and then support or export to other countries. And for this kind of supply chain, they gradually shift from China to other countries because to worry about the U.S. Sanction against China. This is the background of the China-U.S. tension. And then after the breakout of the COVID-19 since this year, and this COVID-19, this further challenges the supply chain in the world. This means the global supply chain has become more profitable and even become more uncertain or even dangerous. So this is further, support the opinion, even the people, that this anti-globalization. So for this trend, we think this should be continue in not only in this year, even in the medium term. This is also possible. And second, the big trend or implication is increase the competition among the major powers, especially I just mentioned, because of the increase, the rising of China and very close the GDP share of the two countries, and the U.S. is feeling more and more pressure, and they have lots of tension against China. So this means the competition between the two countries, will be increased further. This is possible, and this is just start from the trade, and then gradually expanded to the technology and also the politics in the very recently, and then this is financial areas. Financial areas, for example, recently the people talk about whether the China can still as a part of the SWIFT. So this is a very very serious concern about this. This means people really worry about whether the tension between the two countries will become increased, expanded to other areas. If it's expanded to the financial area, this will be the big challenge to China. This is because in the global financial systems, and the U.S. The U.S. dollar, the share is around 80%. But this is different from the trade and also the real economy. In the trade area in the U.S., the share only 15%. But in the financial area, the U.S. account for around 80%. So if the SWIFT, for example, China cannot as a part of the members, so this should be the bigger impact on China. So anyway, going forward, and the competition among the two countries should be gradually increased from trade to other areas. And lastly is the global risks are rising further. This is quite possible because of the anti-globalization, because of the increased competition between the two countries. We can find the conflict between the two countries, and also the geopolitical risk also increased, not only from the supply chain area, but also from the political areas. So we think the global risk will increase further. And lastly, I just want to add one more point, is against all this background, we can find for the supply chain, for this global collaboration, this should be become less important. On the other hand, this means the regionalization will become more important. For example, if in the China we call it this is the world factory. This is a combine a lot of parts, assembling a lot of parts from different countries in this world. But against this background, the supply chain is becoming more regionalization. This means China, Japan, Korea, and China, Taiwan, and also ASEAN also become a more close supply chain. And on the other side, you also can find the US, Mexico, and Canada also become another regional supply chain. And in the European countries, this is quite possible. The advanced and the developing countries or members also maybe close to each other to become another regional supply chain. So all this means the globalization, the pace of globalization will become smaller or slower, and instead of this and the globalization for the supply chain and for the industrialization will become
Okay, thank you, Dr. Lee, for the very insightful sharing. I would like to call on the audience to ask questions, because I'm sure you would have some burning questions which you can share. You can use the Q&A section of the webinar to ask. So do remember to ask questions, because we will be having a Q&A session later on after both speakers have shared their views on protectionism. So do remember, when you have any questions, just note it, record it, type in the Q&A section. Okay. Now, okay, so I would like to introduce our second speaker for tonight. He's Mr. Alfred Chia. He's the CEO of Think Capital, which is a financial advisory firm licensed by Monetary Authority of Singapore. He has over 25 years of experience in the financial advisory field, serving both individuals and corporations. He also sits on the board of various real estate funds as independent director and advisory board member. He is currently serving as the president of Financial Planning Association of Singapore. His insights and perspectives on various financial matters are regularly interviewed by numerous media channels, from radio to TV. So let's virtually welcome Alfred.
Hi, very good evening, everyone. Well, I guess this is the new way of happy hours, right? But instead of intoxicating ourselves with drinks, we intoxicate ourselves with information and data. I mean, I was really blown away with what Dr. Lee have presented. I mean, I think he gave a very good macro overview. I mean, it highlighted one of the very key important things, right? Which is digital transformation. So whether is it a protectionism or is it a fight among digital giants? And it's really remarkable that how fast China is catching up to become the digital giant. And based on the data and statistics that Dr. Lee showed, I was really very impressed with the pace that China is moving on. Now, of course, protectionism is really subjective. Different countries will have different perspective, and more often or not, probably is due to political reasoning. So, I mean, unfortunately, right, for a country like Singapore, there's really very little we can do about protectionism. I mean, in my view, the only thing we can do is really to prepare ourselves properly, right? And of course, when we are in the middle of giant fighting, as a Chinese saying, 鹤蚌相争，鱼翅遭殃, right? 躺着也会中枪, right? Meaning to say is that, right, even if we don't do anything, but because of the fighting among giants, we can be implicated. Okay, so I'm going to keep my presentation very short. Yes, to prepare you for your individual happy hours. or your dinner with your family. So what I just want to do is maybe to share with you our experience, right? Sing Capital experience dealing with different SME about the issue, about the challenges, right? I mean, as much as we want to actually improve, but what are the things that actually are facing us? So that this discussion of mine or presentation of mine will give you insights or maybe further ingredients for further discussions or maybe even future election topics. Now, I mean, without the protectionisms that is actually so-called brewing, I mean, the COVID situation is some form of protectionism that it would actually happen. I mean, that is the kind of disastrous consequences that everyone is fearful of. I mean, of course, you can look from all the medias, right, about jobless rate, unemployment, and it's not just about local, it's globally, right, US, UK, and I think this thing will continue to move on. So actually, I think for the world leaders, just by looking at the impact of COVID, I mean, what will be the kind of real consequences if there are really protectionism in place? I mean, of course, for Sing Capital, we are financial advisors. We work with individual customers and corporations. So today, I just want to share with you our experience working with SME. I mean, what is the definition of SME, right? According to Enterprise Singapore, basically, they have a group turnover, right, of less than, of less than 100 million and a size of not more than 200 workers. And according to these statistics, SME make up about 99% of the total enterprise populations. So, I mean, if we talk about the impact of any of these world tariff, trade tensions, protectionism, I would say the one that is really facing the biggest challenges, the one at the forefront, will be our SME. And it comprises of micro, small, and medium enterprise. And all these statistics are readily available. Okay, but I believe that for the local governments, they recognize this, right? Which is why they are introducing a series of programs to help everyone to increase the productivity. Now, the question here is how many SME are able to embrace and benefit from it? Okay, of course, I'd like to also point out to my very important slides, right? If you cannot remember whatever I say, just remember I'm not responsible for what I say today. I mean, the reason is that today is just for sharing purposes. Okay, I mean, it's not meant for any advice, right? So, I mean, there's a job hazard being a regulated financial advisor. I mean, for any business, right, cash flow is like blood flow. I mean, you really need that blood flow. I mean, the company can don't make profit, but without the cash flow, they are doomed. So this is very important for the survival of SME. Now, I'd like to show you this newspaper article. Right? I mean, of course, we are in the thick and midst of these COVID situations. And of course, I definitely agree, right, with Belgium, Luxembourg, and NUSS, that we need to also see beyond that, right, look far ahead. But because we have this COVID situation impact, that we can actually draw reference to. So if you have noticed my earlier slides about the number of SME in Singapore, now this headline, they say that over 7,600 have loaned $7.1 billion. Now, I mean, it depends on how you read the statistics. Now, definitely within a very short period of time, right, from the circuit breaker until now, based on this newspaper report as of June, to be able to dish out 7 billion loans to the businesses, I think it's a remarkable achievement. But on the other hand, if you talk about the 200,000 SME, only 7,006 are given the loan. Right? I mean, of course, to put things in right perspective, the inquiries to the various banks have increased many-folds. Right? Based on what we understand from the bank, some banks are even experienced 5 times, 6 times increase. And yet they have to manage it due to the limitation of the circuit breaker. At the same time, they also need to process the loan applications. But what I hope to actually see is that to have more businesses able to benefit from this. All right, so again, I want to actually relate the reference of COVID situations to potential trade tensions, the kind of impact that many of us are fearful of. Because nobody, all right, would have anticipated a situations like COVID. I mean, now you walk on the street, basically we cannot recognize each other because we all are covered with masks. But I must say that Singapore governments have acted very decisively. They launched a series of support for business, right? There are so many programs here, okay, but of course, I'm not going to go through these programs. But I want to draw your attention to is that they are actually dispersing the business loan support to the businesses through the banks, which I think that's the right channel, right? Because they actually mention one thing. They will support viable business. The key word is viable. And they are actually providing 90% risk sharing. Essentially, they are telling the banks, please lend. If the business fails, right, you are only responsible for 10%. However, banks being banks, they are very, very professionals, okay? And they still actually, I mean, of course, they have loosened some of the credit assessment, but they are still very, very concerned about the repayment capability of the SME. So based on our experience, there are many businesses that are not able to get the kind of financing they require. But again, to be very objective, there are some businesses, they will not make it. They would really not make it. But there are many, many businesses that are actually on the borderline. You know, it's a chicken and egg thing. If they have this funding, they may be able to walk longer. Okay? And of course, depending on how fast the situation resolves, they can actually recover. But without the funding, yes, you don't even need to talk about any recovery. But at the end of the day, what will happen when all this business fail? Besides the business owner, the biggest impact will be to our workforce, right? There will be actually unemployment. So I mean, it's really a trickle effect, right? Very important. So I would say that business financing for SME is very important, regardless of whatever issue that we are looking at. Unfortunately, okay, I mean, a lot of SMEs, they have always put business as a priority of more than anything else. And many of them do not actually practice sound financial management. I mean, of course, why is it that there are some businesses that are able to actually survive this? I mean, because, right, like the governments, right, like Singapore governments, right, during good times, they keep on reserve. They keep the reserve. So that now is the time to dig into the reserve, right? And in fact, there are definitely a lot of opportunities around. But businesses who do not practice that, or maybe, right, even without all this crisis, they are already struggling with it. So any kind of impact would be a very major blow for their businesses. Okay, so over here, I just do want to do a very quick sharing, right? Especially for many of you who are SME business owner. I mean, the good thing is that I find that the audience for NUSS and Belgium Luxembourg business, I mean, you are all very learned people, right? So that is also something I'm thinking is that how else I can value add to your time. So I mean, over here, I just want to do a quick review because these are the experience that we are having with many SME, right? They want to have the funding, they want to borrow the credits, but unfortunately, they are not able to fulfill the 5C of credit that many banks are looking for. And when they are not able to get the funding, then they started to actually put a lot of complaints and blame. Okay, so since we have this small time here, right? So what are the 5Cs that many banks are looking for? Right, capacity, right? Essentially, it's the capacity to repay the debt. And this is what the government is talking about, they will support viable business. They are not here to extend, right, the eventual death of a business that cannot make it, right? So capacity, you must demonstrate to the banks that you are able to pay back. And do you have enough capital, right? Many businesses, they use private limited as a structure, right? And they even go as little as $2 paid up capital. I mean, you are not definitely able to get the confidence of the banks, right? So, I mean, of course, you must strike a balance, right, of the right amount of paid up capitals and the confidence that you are showing not only to the banks, your customers, that how much capital you are willing to put at stake for a business. Collateral. I mean, ideally, property will still be the best collateral. We have many instances where, and you know, for loan financings or property financing, there's this thing called TDSR, Total Debt Servicing Ratio Framework. That under this framework, all the banks have to comply. And this is also where many businesses find that they may not be able to fulfill the requirements. Then if they have a property, again, this goes back to when they are doing well. What do they do with the profit that they have done, right? Do they put it as a reserve? And how do they actually put it, right, in the stock market or in the property? But this is where this property assets comes into place, right? In fact, many businesses that have properties, they were able to secure a lot of funding at very low cost, and that is very useful for them to fund their business condition. I mean, of course, the macro, the economic conditions. Now, banks, they actually have this thing called vulnerable industry, right? For financial management, there's this thing called vulnerable customers. You know, essentially, if we are more than 60 years old, 62 years old, I mean, illiterate, all this, we are vulnerable. Okay, but they are vulnerable industry, right? For example, aviation, tourism. But on the other hand, is this industry the one that actually really need the support the most? Character, right? That means to say, what is the repayment? What is the credit score of these persons? Have they been paying the bill on time? Have they been able to maintain a very good credit ratings, right? So in summary, I mean, like what I say, I just want to throw out some things, right, based on the experience that we are dealing with. I mean, as much as government is providing us a lot of support, I think there's certain bottleneck, you know, in the way how banks are dispersing the loans. I mean, there's no easy solution because they do have a lot of volume. And for businesses that is not able to actually provide the confidence that they can sustain, then they will next, right? The bank will go for next applications, right? So the SME will be deprived of that opportunities. And the other things, right? So which is why I just want to share that, and then for our further discussion. So in summary, in my opinion, for a small economy like Singapore, I think the government need to take a very, very leading role, right? Because they have the resources. They are here to actually, I mean, they should be able to support the SME better, right? But at the same time, SME need to embrace training for staff. A lot of times, right, is that if I send my staff for training, who's going to do my business? But these are the times. And actually trainings, we are talking about digital training, as what Dr. Lee have actually rightly pointed out. I mean, imagine China, US, they are now fighting the digital war. And if, let's say, we cannot even, right, receive payment from customers online, then we are very, very behind the curve. And especially with 5G coming on board, everything is going to be very fast. And from there, hopefully, it will be able to increase in productivities. I mean, of course, this is also a very debatable topic. But I think for many business owners, is to strengthen the financial management skill. Now, you can hire the best accountant, you can hire the best finance. But if, let's say, there's no trust, and then if the business owner themselves are not familiar with this area, and I really find, based on experience, many business owners, they are more excited to find business. And when it comes to all this financial management, they always take a layback kind of attitude. But this is where, right, especially in times like this, you find that you really need that kind of skill set. And of course, okay, back to again, government support to have attractive financing schemes. to allow the businesses to expand, right, to go overseas, right? Although there are many government grants supporting businesses that is able to go overseas, but I think there are a lot more that can be done, right? Okay, so I mean, of course, I just want to end here with, right, is more importantly is to know the financial health of your company. I mean, especially if you are senior executive management of your businesses, of your companies, I think these are the very important things, is to engage the business owner, the board, right, to really understand what is my financial health so that I can know what I need to do to navigate further. Okay, so with that, I mean, really thank you very much for your attention. So I'll hand back to CC.
Okay, thank you, Alfred, for the very interesting sharing. So now we are opening up for Q&A, and I've already seen a few questions over here, so I'm going to read out. Okay, the first question is directed to Dr. Lee. In your opinion, is China leading US on technology application like AI, artificial intelligence, and digital commerce? Dr. Lee?
Are you okay? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, can hear you. Perfect.
Okay. Yeah, actually, I'm more confident that China can lead the competition against the US in the AI and the new technology, because in the last half years, I mainly stayed in China. For example, I stayed in the Zhejiang province. This is something the leading area for the digital economy in China. But also in the world, this should be a very advanced area in China to developing the AI and the big data technology. And in the last several months, I stayed in different cities, especially in the capital city in Hangzhou, and also other cities. I find that there's a very good environment or combination in this area to encourage the R&D and the investment in this area. So more and more AI company is set up in this area, and a lot of funds and capital is just to chase some very promising project in this area. But not only in Zhejiang, in the Yangtze River Delta region, in the Jiangsu, Shanghai, and Anhui, and other area. And also you can say in the whole China, is a lot of major cities. There is the priority is to develop the new economy, especially the AI technology and other area. And especially the government, very encouraged the application of the use AI and the big data, something. So not only government, the commercial area, and also in the experts in the personal area, there's a lot of demands to push the development of AI. So I think against this background, and also another reason is, after the COVID-19, China is the first the major countries is resumed from this impact, and the overall growth is become more healthy and return to the normal track. So I think if China continue on these trends, at least this can, at the same level as the US in the AI area, even become more advanced. This is quite possible in the future.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Lee. So the second question is directed to Alfred. So the question is, would you be able to explain the extent of supply chain disruptions for essential goods and services, example, medical supplies and food sources caused by protectionism, and whether this will have a permanent impact? Alfred, please.
Well, I think that is probably a more appropriate question for Dr. Lee. all right, because actually I saw the question is fantastic. Yeah, actually, Dr. Lee, I would like to also understand from you, how do you see this medical arena? I mean, actually, I find China is growing very strongly in terms of digital, and especially is that the Chinese people, right, they were actually able to leapfrog, right, from what US have to go through a physical phone, a pager, and then many people are now straight away on smartphone. So I think it's also the usage of the general population that is actually driving this whole digital transformation. But how about the medical parts, especially with the COVID situations? I mean, China have achieved very well, very good result. How do you think this has actually further, right, add on to this transformation?
Okay, let me just give some points. For the medical area, the technology, I think the fundamental driver is the aging population in China, and also the growing increased the income in China. So this is the middle class population in China is increased gradually. So on the one hand is aging people, on the other hand is increased the income. So this also driven the people is more care about their medical environment or condition. So they would like to pay more money in this area. And after this COVID-19, and people is more care about in this area. And also the government, they have a lot of policies to support further development in this area. And also, you know, in China, because this is also related to some manufacturing capacity, and also this also supports the further growth in this area. For example, you know, at the beginning, there's a lot of increased demand for the mask. And this is not only for the ordinary, but also for some surgery mask in China. But because of in China, there's a lot of infrastructure and a lot of companies, they already have this capacity. So this is they can shift their capacity to this area very fast. They not only can produce a lot of qualified masks, but also can export a lot to the globe or to the other countries. So all this indicates in China, the capacity is strong enough, but at the same time, because of the very fundamental drivers, this also further supports the Chinese government and in the commercial areas, they are further to develop the medical technology and applications in the society to serve the people and also the different the age groups in the future. So overall, I'm very promising and very confident that in this medical area is very promising area in China, especially during after the COVID-19. This is continue to increase very fast. So actually, we once summarized the 10 sectors in China is negatively impacted by the COVID-19. But on the other hand, we also summarize it with another 10 sectors is very positive supported by the COVID-19. But in today's event, I have no time to share this all these findings maybe in the future. But what I can say is we strongly believe the medical area, and this is should be belong to one of the promising areas will be further developed after the COVID-19. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Lee and Alfred. So the next question is also directed to Dr. Lee. The participants say that thank you for your very insightful overview. What effect would you expect of the US presidential election on the China-US relations, either in case President Trump is re-elected or in the case of Vice President Biden wins? I guess a lot of people want to know about this as well. Dr. Lee, please.
Okay, just share my personal observation. I think, you know, in this area, this should be the worst stage between the two countries' relationship. And this is just before the U.S. presidential election, and the Trumps actually they have they impose a lot of more and more pressure on China, but you can find this is not only due to the China itself. This is due to COVID-19. If you look at the for the COVID-19 in the U.S., if this become worse and worse, and then from the U.S. side, the government President Trump will press more pressure on China. So this means there's a negative relationship between the COVID-19 in the U.S. and the relationship between the two countries. So, and very recently, the president said they still think in the future and the COVID-19 in the U.S. will become worse. So on the other hand, we find the U.S. puts more pressure, diplomatic pressure on China. So at this stage, we think this should be one of the worst stage. But after, if Trump is win the election, after that, I think maybe the relation between the two countries should become better, become not so worse like this, because for Trump is a very realistic guy. For him, if he wins the new election, he think maybe there's no pressure for the next term. So maybe he just focus on how to make sure he can finish his term. Maybe, but the very important condition is should be cooperate with China on the trade and the economy cooperation, and as well as other major matters in the international issues. So I think if the Trump is win, maybe the relationship with the countries become better. But if the Biden wins the election, maybe there's also some improved. But I think you cannot say some very significant improvement, just like Obama the administration did in all the stage, because even for the Biden, maybe they can withdraw some very strict policy against China by the President Trump. But overall, the direction is they cannot withdraw all the policies, because they have some consensus on the China policies. Maybe the competition is increased and expanded to more areas. This means it's very difficult for the two countries to return to the old areas. So whatever who is wins the present, the relationship maybe is better than now, but actually cannot go back to the old stage, such as the Obama area.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Lee. Okay, so the next question is directed to Alfred again. So how can SMEs and companies based in the region survive? They leverage upon the impending trade wars and fallout. Is this a zero-sum game, or can winners emerge?
Well, this is a very tough question, a very good question. I think he has to go to the definition of SME. I mean, take for example, as I mentioned, as I showed you earlier on, Enterprise Singapore, they define Singapore as SME as having turnover less than 100 million or less than 200 employees. But in US, SME generally have a minimum employee size of 500 to 1,005. It depends on the industry. And then the makeup is also different, right? In country like US, SME basically contribute about 45% of the employments, whereas Singapore, SME actually contribute more than 65% of the employments. So I think the makeup is different, but I think one thing for sure, Singapore market is really small. So for SME to really have the economy of scale and to be able to actually to have a chain, right, a global effect, all these things, we have to go overseas. But based on what I see so far, I think there is still this lack of corporations, right? Like unlike the Japanese, the Korean, when they go overseas, they go as a pack. Over here, we still like to go solo, individual. And more importantly, whichever country that we want to go, we want to first ask, does SQ fly there? So these are some of the consideration or the mindset that I think SME would have to adjust and change, right? So that we can open up new grounds, and so that we can actually have a better regional or even global expansion. Right? Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alfred. So the next question is, I guess, like directed to both of you. So the question is, do you think more Chinese companies will set up offices in Singapore compared to the past? And how do we encourage 10 times more Chinese companies to come and invest into Singapore? Maybe Alfred can share your opinion, or right, whoever.
Yeah, Dr. Lee, please.
Okay, thank you. I think maybe definitely more Chinese company will go to Singapore. First of all, you know, maybe because of the Hong Kong issues, maybe some not only because of some foreign companies worry about Hong Kong, but I think even some Chinese companies that worry about Hong Kong's, you know, especially the unstable situation. So this is quite possible. Some Chinese companies is more considered about set up in Singapore because Singapore, this is a country, this is just very neutral, sometimes between the US and China. And also China also needs a real intermediate area to communicate with the Western countries. And Singapore definitely politically is quite stable, it's very stable, and also is very advanced the legal environment, very better environment, legal environment. This is to attract the Chinese company to come in. So the next question is how to make sure the more Chinese can come. I think first of all, from the Singapore side, it should become continue to become the natural situation between the two big powers, and also it should be have some more measures to facilitate the Chinese companies to invest and set up in the US. And because the demand is quite strong from China side, the key is if the Singapore government can provide a better environment and facilitate this process. So this is makes the Chinese company to invest in the Singapore is quite easy or simple. So definitely more Chinese company will go to the Singapore.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Lee. Okay, we are running short of time, so we only have the time for one question. But I do see there are quite a number of questions coming in, and some of them are really good questions. Okay, I will just ask one more question from the attendee who has not asked any question yet, because some people have already asked question and we've already answered. But if you have further questions, you can email us. Maybe we will try to direct to them to help you answer your questions. Okay, so the next question, the last question of the day is, global pandemic forced Singapore to embrace digital world, which people was reluctant to be on board during pre-COVID. What do you think are the biggest barriers people of Singapore and SMEs need to overcome to stay relevant in the next 10 years? Yeah, maybe Alfred, would you want to answer this question?
Oh, okay. Yeah, actually, to continue what Dr. Lee have mentioned, I totally agree with him that Singapore, we are in a really very good positions to actually welcome a lot of foreigners. And actually, sometimes protectionism or even trade tension, it definitely create opportunities. I mean, of course, even like the recent saga about Australia with the Chinese, and then even like UK with Hong Kong. So I mean, of course, I think it's very important for us to be very neutral. And this is where we can actually attract. However, right, when we attract foreigners, it will only benefit certain industry. For example, the financial services, real estate, educations, right? Maybe F&B, restaurant services. But there are a lot more other industry that I think need to actually see how to actually engage the world. We really need to go out in order to build a much better and stronger future for all of us. Because if not, then it's more like a domestic kind of services, taking advantage of the situations, right? I mean, I think this is the very fundamentals that we need to look at. Now, as much as I mentioned about government support, and the government do provide a lot of support, sometimes so much so, the support make us lost when we go overseas. Because when we go overseas, many countries, they do not provide that kind of support for the SME. And then if we are so used to the support, the reliance, then this may also hinder our competitiveness. So I think it's a combination of all parties, right? About the businesses need to know how to take advantage of support, at the same time be self-reliance and independence. I mean, like these very good questions about digital embracement. I mean, these are some of the things. It's about our mindset, right? Whether it's a culture, whether it's a mindset, I think we need to actually embrace it so that we can actually go with the flow. And I think China is a very excellent example about the digital transformation modernizations.
Okay, thank you, Alfred. Okay, so we come to the end of the event. Thank you once again for attending our webinar tonight. I hope you had a fruitful and enjoyable session. And like I mentioned earlier, our next event is going to be on artificial intelligence. Stay tuned. So if you're not on our mailing list yet, you can sign up as well. Our contact detail is on the poster of tonight's event. So yeah, so do look out for our email in the future for future events. So we will end the session here, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you. And also I would like to thank Dr. Lee and Alfred Chia for speaking with us tonight. And I would like to thank Dr. Lee for taking. It was not easy for him to actually to be here tonight with us, because he's right now in China, and because of the firewall, you actually saw there was some connectivity issue. So I hope you all will understand, give your understanding to the situation. So we would like to thank them once again for sharing that insights with us. Thank you.
Thank you.